In this video, I'm going to talk about the painting The Calling of St. Matthew, painted around 1599 to 1600 by Caravaggio. This is possibly Caravaggio's most famous painting, but I'm going to point out what I think are some Easter eggs which you may have never seen before. And the first secret about the painting is that Caravaggio used a secret technique which I believe master artists have used for centuries, which I call multi-referencing. It's when an artist takes small parts from several works of art by another artist and incorporates these parts into a single picture. In The Calling of St. Matthew, Caravaggio multi-referenced the artist Lorenzo Costa. So I'm going to put up pictures by Lorenzo Costa next to The Calling of St. Matthew and point out what parts are being referenced, but I'll also point out some other Easter eggs. So let's get started. Now the first painting by Lorenzo Costa that I want to show you is the Argo, painted around 1490. It's at the Civic Museum of Padua in Italy. Now another Easter egg, which I think is deliberate, is painted here by both Lorenzo Costa and Caravaggio, and that is that of a cross, as though you are looking right at it. In Lorenzo Costa's painting, the Argo, in the upper left-hand corner, the rigging of the ship, the mast, and the cross wood for the sail is at a right-angle cross, as though you're looking directly at the cross. And in Caravaggio's painting, the window has a cross, again, as though you're looking directly at it. There's no angle above or below the 90 degrees. It's exactly 90 degrees, as though both artists are saying, I am a Christian. Now, I want to point out that this is only my opinion. This is not in any books, not to be dogmatic, yet I still believe it to be true. So take a look for yourself and see if you agree. Let me know in the comments. So Caravaggio referenced the cross of the mast as the cross in the window in his own Calling of St. Matthew, but also referenced in the painting of the Argo are the bare legs of the soldiers on the Argo, and it's repeated in the legs of St. Matthew and his gang. Caravaggio painted his men wearing leggings, but they look as though they're almost bare, and they're several at the same angles as the men in the Argo. Also, the white-colored body of water to the right of the Argo is referenced with a similar shape and color of Caravaggio's right leg of the man in black and white with his back to the viewer. Another reference, which I think is deliberate, is that of the bare chest of what is probably Jason standing in the Argo, and that of the red and white of the boy's chest, who's looking at the two people pointing in Caravaggio's painting. The next painting by Lorenzo Costa, where I think Caravaggio borrowed a few parts to include in The Calling of St. Matthew, is the painting The Holy Family, painted around 1490 by Lorenzo Costa. It's at the Museum of Fine Arts of Lyon in France. The first reference that jumps out to me is the head and face of Joseph looks like Caravaggio's Matthew, and he's at the same angle of view, but the heads are tilted differently. Could be the same person. The resemblance is so close. There's a window in both paintings with a horizontal line dividing black and white on the windowsill. Costa also painted a vertical and horizontal stick of wood at right angles in the top of the window, and Caravaggio referenced the vertical and horizontal window frame with his own window frame with a cross of the vertical and horizontal frames. The Holy Family has Joseph holding a wooden staff at an angle over his right shoulder, and The Calling of St. Matthew referenced this with the angled sword sheath of the man sitting on the bench with his back to the viewer. Lorenzo Costa painted baby Jesus lying on a rectangular white blanket with a dark line of cloth below it, and Caravaggio referenced the blanket with his table on the left side of The Calling of St. Matthew, also light in color and with a black horizontal line on the lower edge of the table as well. Both paintings have a reflection of light in the upper right corners, which both feature a sharp horizontal, separating light from darkness, as though God is shining a light on the scene from above on the right side. And this next painting for comparison is Allegory of Isabella d'Este's Coronation, painted around 1500 to 1505 by Lorenzo Costa. It's at the Louvre Museum in Paris. Caravaggio referenced the clothing of Costa's man and woman in the lower right as the cloak worn by the man sitting with his back to us in the Calling of St. Matthew. The faces from people in allegory of Isabella d'Este's coronation is referenced by Caravaggio's people. Costa's bearded man standing on the left side closest to the viewer becomes the head and angle of view of Caravaggio's bearded Matthew. This Lorenzo Costa painting also has a strong diagonal in the top right of the painting. The grass in the distance has a strong dark and light from the sunlight and the shadow of the trees, much like the ray of light painted by Caravaggio in the upper right-hand corner. This next painting by Lorenzo Costa has another Easter egg besides the references, but I'm going to show you the references first. This is a concert painted around 1488 to 1490 by Lorenzo Costa. It's at the National Gallery in London. Both of these paintings have a similar palette of colors. Lorenzo Costa's girl on the left has a similar face in likeness and angle of the face as Caravaggio's boy sitting in the center of the painting looking to the right. The left forearm of Costa's guitar player becomes the left forearm of St. Matthew pointing at himself. The linear horizontal table across the lower part of the concert is referenced by the light reflecting similar shapes and colors with the lower window and the wall of light below it in the Calling of St. Matthew. Costa painted the guitar player's shirt with a vertical white line with red on the left and right side of the white, and Caravaggio painted the same red, white, red in the front of the shirt of the boy seated in the Calling of St. Matthew. Lorenzo Costa has a book laying open on the table in the lower right, and Caravaggio referenced similar horizontal dark and light lines in his window. Now here's another Easter egg. There are two hands resting on the table in the concert, the left hand of the girl on the left and the right hand of the man on the right. The man on the right is singing, but his eyes are locked on the girl. I think that Caravaggio noticed this, and in Calling of St. Matthew, he painted the two hands on the table as the same man with his two hands together, as if to say, I see the man on the right looking at the girl in the concert, and I think this is to indicate that they are intended by Costa to be depicted as secret lovers. This is Caravaggio making a commentary on a painting by Lorenzo Costa in his own painting. Just my opinion, but look for yourself and think about whether Caravaggio and Costa intended to depict the subject of the man on the right and the woman on the left as a couple. Leave a comment, please, and let me know what you think. This next painting is Annunciation, painted in the late 15th century by Lorenzo Costa. It's at the Gemälde Gallery Alte Meister in Dresden, Germany. Mary has a similar facial feature and quarter angle of view as the man in the far right of Calling of St. Matthew. Mary's left hand is referenced by the right hand of the standing man on the far right pointing at Matthew. Mary has an angled straight line on the top of her shirt across her chest, and Caravaggio painted his reflection light at the same angle at the lower part of the ray of light in the upper right-hand corner. The white curved dove wing in Annunciation is referenced by the white plumes on the two hats in the Calling of St. Matthew. This next painting is Presentation of Christ, painted around 1465 to 1505 by Lorenzo Costa. It's at the Gemälde Gallery in Berlin. Again, there's a strong resemblance of the bearded Joseph in Presentation of Christ and the bearded Matthew in the Caravaggio painting. Costa's woman at the far right has a similar face and angle as the face of the standing man at the far right in the Calling of St. Matthew. The vertical and horizontal line of the pedestal that baby Jesus stands on in the Lorenzo Costa painting is referenced by the window vertical and horizontal lines in Caravaggio's painting. And the last painting which I want to show you for comparison is St. John the Baptist, painted in 1505 by Lorenzo Costa. It's at the National Gallery in London. Please keep in mind that I think that Caravaggio referenced all of the art by Lorenzo Costa, and I'm just showing you a few here, but take a look at the rest of them and see if you can find what parts are being referenced. The way that Lorenzo Costa painted St. John's face is the same way that Caravaggio painted St. Matthew's face. St. John the Baptist holds a white ribbon which has shapes and colors like the white and black shirt sleeves of the man with his back to us in the Calling of St. Matthew. Lorenzo Costa painted St. John with an angled staff that is placed in a quiver on his back. Caravaggio referenced Costa's angled staff with the angled sword sheath on the seated man with his back to us. His angled sheath is prominently painted in front of the bench. Once you know that an artist is familiar with the multi-reference technique, you should look for multi-references in other works of art by this artist, and in this case Caravaggio. You also know that Caravaggio has access or a collection of Lorenzo Costa's work, so you should also look for Lorenzo Costa being multi-referenced in other works by Caravaggio. If you like this video, please press the like button, and also subscribe if you like the material I'm presenting. I also have a newsletter where I talk about tools for master artists to create and understand master arts works of art. Thank you for watching.